Welcome, weary soul, to Nocturne Lore. Breathe with me now, slowly, gently. Let the weight of the day fall from your shoulders. Feel it loosening, slipping away. You are safe here in the quiet between heartbeats, where nothing is demanded of you. Breath remains in and out. A little slower now. Feel your jaw unclench, your brow smooth, your shoulders sink, as the noise of the waking world fades like distant thunder beyond sealed walls. Tonight, we drift together into the deep path etched across the stars. Do not strain to listen. Let the words come to you like mist, cool, unhurried. Settling where they will, close your eyes. Yes, just like that, the galaxy can wait. Its wars will still be there when you wake. But for now, I have sat beside so many others, across centuries uncounted, whispering to the weary, the wounded, the dying. I am a remembrancer, or what remains of one spared by chance, by cruelty, by the long indifference of time. I remember so that you do not have to. Breathe with me, begin. Listen to the hush between my words. Feel the gentle rise of your chest, the fall, the rhythm older than thought, older than fear. Let it carry you downward, deeper into stillness, into the long twilight of memory. Tonight, I will tell you of Calth, not as it is shouted. It is carved into monuments, but as it felt, quiet, bewildering, unbearably sad, and the night remembers. The galaxy sleeps. Close your eyes. The long night is kind. There was a time, long before the sky burned, when Calth was gentle, a world bathed, nights cool and forgiving. I remember standing beneath its open heavens, feeling the warmth on my face, the air carrying the scent of grain, clean water, stone warmed by the sun. It was a world that believed in tomorrow, and because of that, so did we. Ultramar was not loud in its pride, quiet, assured, certain that order could endure, that reason could hold the line against the dark. The Ultramarines walked their cities like living statues, blue and gold catching the light, their voices measured, their movements precise. They spoke of supply routes and harvest yields, of light yet to be raised, of children who would never know the sound of orbital fire. And I believed them. Emperor, forgive me. I believed them. Feel your body sinking now, as trust sinks slowly into sleep. The word bearers came as brothers, sacred oils, etched with scripture, that whispered even when no lips moved. Their chaplains murmured blessings in voices meant to soothe, meant to comfort. They spoke of faith, of unity, of devotion to the Emperor's vision. And no one wished to hear the tremor beneath those words. Bright for suspicion, I remember them walking side by side with Guilliman sons, sharing meals beneath vaulted ceilings, exchanging texts in the quiet of the archives, parchment rustling softly, quills scratching slow and steady, candles burning low, steady flames untouched by drafts, house whispered against marble and adamantium, a sound like reassurance, like sleep itself. Breathe with me. Let that rain wash over you now. Imagine it falling endlessly, gently, on a world that does not yet know it is condemned. The first change was not fire, could be mistaken for imagination. Astropathic choirs faltered, not breaking, just thinning. Their harmonies missing notes no one could quite name. Messages delayed by heartbeats, then breaths, then minutes. The kind of delays that make administrators frown. Not panic, remembrance when I felt it. A pause in the air, like the moment before sleep claims you, when thoughts blur. When certainty loosens its grip, the braziers still burned, their coals glowing a tired orange, ash drifting upward like slow snow. But something had begun to turn. Ultramarines did not raise alarms. They adjusted schedules, recalculated probabilities, reassured one another with calm voices. The word-bearers smiled, nodded, quoted scripture about patience, about trials sent to strengthen faith. And all the while, the drifting now, I can hear it in your breath, feel it in the stillness between words. Let it take you further. I remember walking the upper terraces at dusk, the sun sinking low, painting the clouds in gold and rose, the city lights blooming one by one, distant bells tolling the hour, never urgent. Incense burned in quiet alcoves, the scent of endings, though none of us had the language for it yet. When the sky finally broke, it did so without anger, without sound. Void shields failed like sighs, not screams. And the stars disappeared. Platforms died in silence, their debris trailing light like dying prayers. The heavens darkened, not with rage, but with inevitability. Even then, there was no panic, only confusion. Systems failed politely, one after another. As if apologizing, Guilliman's voice carried calm channels, firm, steady, reassuring. The voice of a father telling his children that all would be well. The word-bearers knelt. That is what I remember most clearly. Not the destruction, not the betrayal yet to come, but the stillness of them, crimson bowed, lips moving in silent devotion, while the sky fell and the night remembers. The galaxy sleeps. Close your eyes. The long night is kind. Feel the weight leave your chest now. Let your breath match mine. Slow. Even you are safe here. Began then. Real rain falling on burning metal. Hissing softly. Steam rising in pale veils. Distant. Gentle. Like the world itself trying to soothe its own wounds. I stood alone beneath an archway, listening, feeling the tremor through the stone. Be undone, it could not, but that is for another night, another whisper, another slow descent. Rest now, let the image fade, the gold skies dimming, the bells growing distant, the rain softening, softer. I am still here, watching, remembering. Again, slow, unhurried, as though nothing waits beyond this moment. Let the air fill you and leave you like a tide that knows your name. After the sky dimmed, after the first quiet failures rippled outward like circles on denial, it settled over Calth like evening mist, cool, almost kind. And in that calm, we continued our routines because routine is a powerful lullaby. I remember scribes returning to their desks, fingers steady, ink flowing as it always had, servitors shuffling through corridor footfalls, the clink of tools, the low murmur of data, spirits trying to reconcile numbers that no longer made sense, and beneath it all, a hum, faint, persistent, like a held breath. You are drifting now. Let your eyelids grow heavy. Guilliman's discipline was a shelter, their certainty a wall against panic. Squads redeployed, Vox channels cleared, contingency plans unrolled like ancient maps, every movement precise, every command delivered in that calm, level tone that made you believe order itself could not fail, remained strangely distant, not absent, just apart, their armor dulled by shadow, their voices low, inward, as if listening to something the rest of us could not hear. They spoke less to their cousins, spent longer hours in prayer. Stone, I passed one of their chapels, then a place hastily consecrated within a civic hall, incense thick in the air, sweet, cloying the smell of endings. Their chaplain stood motionless before a sigil. I did not recognize its angles wrong, its lines when he turned to me. His smile was gentle, apologetic, and I felt suddenly very tired. Rest with that feeling. Do not resist it. The first tremors came from below, not explosions, not violence, but movement. The planet itself shifting, deep dust sifted from ceilings. Statues creaked, braziers swayed, their embers shedding sparks like falling stars. No alarm sounded because nothing was yet broken. Astropaths finally cried out then, not in terror, but confusion, falling silent one by one. The warp had gone. Still, an impossible calm, as if a great ocean had frozen mid-wave. Messages sent into it did not echo back. They simply vanished. I remember the taste of fear then, metallic, faint, like blood on the tongue. Disbelief by the sheer audacity of what was unfolding. And the night remembers. The galaxy sleeps. Close your eyes. The long night is kind. The sky darkened further, not with clouds, but with absence. The stars themselves seem dark, one by one, their lights winking out without protest. No distress calls, no final transmissions, just quiet. Guilliman ordered shelters opened, void-sealed halls prepared, civilians guided downward into the vast subterranean spaces that honeycombed Calth's crust. Siege. Though none had imagined a siege like this, people moved calmly, almost serenely, trusting in the systems that had never failed them. Children clutched data, slates, and toys. Parents murmured, reassurances they themselves believed. I walked among them, recording, always recording, because that was my purpose, to remember what it was like before the end. I noted the echo of footsteps on stone, the soft sobs quickly hushed, the way the air grew cooler as we descended, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and ancient machinery. Deep below, the great reactors hummed, light a pale blue dawn that never shifted. There were gardens down there. Did you know that? Hydroponic terraces where green leaves glistened with condensation. Water trickled softly through channels. A sound like rain remembered. A sound meant to soothe. I stood beside one such channel, watching the water flow. When the lights flickered, from off in the hall, then they returned. Brighter, the word bearers completed their preparations. I did not see it happen, not with my eyes, but I felt it, a pressure, a tightening, as though the world itself had been drawn into a clenched fist. Vox channels screamed to life, not with screams, but with chanting, layered voices, calm, terrible in their certainty. The betrayal did not come as fury. It came as devotion. When the first shells fell, they fell softly, muted by failing shields, absorbed by stone and distance. The sound was a distant thump, like a door closing far away, settling on shoulders and hair, like ash. No one ran. There was nowhere to run. Guilliman's voice rose then, still calm, still controlled, but edged now with something new. Disbelief, hurt. The pain of a son realizing his brother has turned away became undeniable. You are safe here. Let the weight leave you. The underground halls trembled again, stronger this time. A low groan passing through the stone. People clutched one another. Prayers whispered, not to any god in particular, just to the idea that someone, somewhere, was lit. Pressed my hand to the wall, feeling the vibration, the pulse of a wounded world. And I knew, with a clarity that cut through all illusion, that Calth was being murdered, not in rage, but in ritual, carefully, lovingly, as an offering. And the long night is kind. Time stretched then, lost its meaning. Minutes felt like hours, hours like heartbeats. The reactors dimmed again. Alarms finally began to sound. Low, mournful tones. Not urgent. Just set motion with dignified resolve. Somewhere above, Ultramarines and word-bearers faced one another, weapons raised. But even then, the fighting was strange, restrained, as though both sides feared waking something worse. Bolter fire echoed faintly through kilometers of stone, softened by depth and distance down where I stood. The water channels began to glow, phosphorescent algae reacting to radiation leaks far above, casting the gardens in ghostly blue light. Beautiful, surreal, like a dream refusing to end. A child asked me what was happening, her voice small, still. I told her the truth, as gently as I could, that the world was changing, and that sometimes change hurts. She nodded, accepting this with the wisdom of the young, and leaned against her mother, asleep within moments. Sleep comes easily, even at the end. I continued to record, even as my hands trembled, even as my voice grew hoarse, because memory is stubborn. It persists when hope does not. I described the smell of ozone, the feel of dust on skin, the sound of distant bells tolling evacuation cycles, slow, steady, never panicked, continued to fall. But you do not need to follow it further tonight. Rest now. Let the images soften. the blue lights dim, the tremors fade into a gentle rocking, like a cradle. I am still here, beside you, whispering, remembering, even as though the air itself is heavier, warmer, kinder. Let it fill you and leave you, carrying the edges of thought with it. You are drifting, and I will not let you fall too fast. Deep beneath Calth's broken sky, time became something soft. Were no windows there, no suns to measure the hours, only the rhythm of machinery, the hum of reactors, the slow pulse of emergency lights, breathing in and out. And in that gentle repetition, fear learned to rest. People settled where they stood, or where they were guided. Carved ages ago with the assumption of patience, families wrapped themselves in cloaks. Children slept curled against warmth. Elders whispered stories, not to pass time, but to keep it from breaking. I sat with them, my back against cold stone, recording softly. Always softly. Felt wrong, disrespectful. The stone walls carried every whisper, returned it slightly changed, as though the planet itself were listening. Above us, battles unfolded that history would later try to make grand. But down there, they were only vibrations, then heard. Each impact a dull ache, each collapse a slow exhale from the world. You are safe here. Feel how still everything is. Guilliman's orders reached us filtered through layers of command, calm, structured, reassuring even now. Rations were calculated, measured and re-measured. The great administrative mind of Ultramar refused to surrender to chaos, even as the very heavens betrayed it. The word-bearers' voices no longer came through the Vox. Their channels had gone silent, or perhaps were closed to us, sealed not want to hear. The absence of their words was louder than any accusation. I remember a chaplain of the Ultramarines kneeling in one of the underground shrines, his helm removed, head bowed, not in prayer to a god, but in reflection, his lips moving casualty projections, as though numbers could still save us. Ash began to drift down through ventilation shafts, then fine, pale, settling on shoulders, hair, open pages of books. It fell like snow remembered from another life, cold to the touch, something older, something sacred defiled. Let that ash fall away now, somewhere far above. The sun had been blotted out completely. We knew because the power ratio shifted, the planetary systems compensating for the loss of solar input. It was strange, knowing night had fallen. The garden stemmed, their bioluminescent plants glowing brighter to compensate. Leaves trembling as if in a breeze that did not exist. Water continued to trickle, soft, patient. The sound became a comfort, a metronome for the heart. The long night is kind. I was called to a command antechamber then, a place where officers gathered quietly, hololithic displays showing fractured images of the surface, continents torn, cities burning, in slow motion, the atmosphere itself bleeding away in luminous streams, terrible way. Like watching a star die from a great distance, Guilliman stood there, tall, still, a pillar of blue and gold amid the gloom, his expression unreadable, carved from restraint. When he spoke, his voice did not tremble, but the silence, surrender. But as acknowledgement, and in those words, an age ended. No one cried out. There were no gasps, only nods, quiet acceptance. Because grief had already settled, heavy and inevitable, like gravity, turning of cosmic betrayal. The word bearers had not merely attacked a world, they had wounded an idea. The belief that Brotherhood could not be broken. Rest with that thought. Do not cling to it. The underground began to fail in small ways. A door that would not open, a lift that stalled between levels, air recyclers that coughed and stuttered, always repaired, always compensated for, but each failure left a mark. Fall. Truths are spoken softly. A man confessed he had never believed in the Emperor. A woman admitted she had. Desperately, both felt equally small in the end. Children dreamed aloud, their murmurs echoing in the dark. Speaking of blue, armored giants, who sons. Dreams are stubborn things. They persist even when reality does not. Above us, the bombardment shifted, changed cadence. Longer pauses, heavier impacts. The word bearers were tearing open the planet's skin, seeking the reactors, the void in. You are drifting deeper now. I remember the moment the air grew thin, just slightly. Enough to make breath shorter, sharper. Alarms chimed softly, politely, requesting reduced activity, requesting calm, as though calm could be requested. Sacrifices made, entire sectors abandoned to preserve others. These decisions were made without ceremony, without hesitation. That was his burden, to choose who would breathe and who would not. The reactors surged, then steadied, then surged again, each fluctuation sending a tremor through the stone. Dust falling, lights flickering, people holding their breath in unison, waiting, always waiting. And the night remembers. The galaxy sleeps. Close your eyes. The long night is myself once more, beside a water channel, watching the glow ripple as vibrations pass through it, the surface trembling, distorting reflections. I saw my own face there, older than I remembered, eyes hollowed by witnessing, and I wondered, should have. A word-bearer's chant reached us, then faint, carried through ruptured strata, a low, resonant hum, reverent, ecstatic. It raised the hairs on my arms, not from fear, but from recognition. The sound of certainty unbound by doubt. Ultramarine bolters answered, distant, restrained, not in rage, but in sorrow. Brothers firing upon brothers, each shot a question that would never be answered. You need not hear more tonight. Let the sound fade. Let the hum dissolve into the steady rhythm of breath. Die, slowly, patiently, as worlds do, and we continue to endure. Because endurance was all that remained. I will keep watch while you rest. Sleep now, while the stars still burn. Breathe with me, slowly, deeply, as though each breath is wrapped in warmth. You are safe here, held between memory and rest. Time beneath Calth became layered. Moments stacked atop one another like sediment. Hours losing their edges. Days dissolving into a single, continuous waiting. We marked its passing not by clocks, but by system checks, ration cycles, the soft chiming of status runes shifting from green to amber, and sometimes to red. Ash continued to fall, drawn downward through cracked vents and ruptured ducts. It settled everywhere, on armor and robes, on skin and hair, on open books and silent instruments. Its halls dulled their sharpness, making even catastrophe feel muted, distant, as if seen through drifting snow. Let that ash settle in your thoughts, then let it drift away. I remember a Marine removing his helm to breathe the recycled air more easily. His face calm, ash clung to his lashes, his brows. He looked like a statue unearthed from a ruin, ancient, patient, uncomplaining. He noticed my gaze, inclined his head politely, and replaced the helm without a word. The Ultramarines spoke that mattered had already been decided. They moved through the shelters like guardians in a tomb, silent, tireless, checking seals, offering water, standing watch over sleeping civilians. Even now, even here, they were builders, present only in their absence, in the damage they inflicted, in the distant chants that occasionally trembled through the stone like remembered thunder. Their betrayal no longer needed confirmation. It was written into the planet's bones, and the night remembers. The galaxy sleeps. Close your... The long night is kind. At one point, the power failed completely, just for a heartbeat. Long enough for darkness to claim everything. A true darkness. Heavy. Absolute. The kind that presses against the eyes, the lungs, the mind. Children gasped, steady, as though nothing had happened, but something had. From that moment on, fear stopped pretending to be something else. It did not scream. It did not thrash. It simply sat with us, quiet, attentive, waiting. Guilliman flickering hololiths, scarred now by static, his voice still calm, still measured. He spoke of endurance, of duty, of survival, of the long view that Ultramar would endure, even if Calth did not. I watched people listen, silently. Some straightened their backs, some simply slept, comforted by the sound of authority that had not abandoned them. You are drifting deeper now. The reactors began to fail in earnest. Then, not catastrophically, but persistently, a cascade of small losses, coolant leaks, sticking, servo, machines struggling to compensate. The engineers worked without rest, hands blackened, voices hoarse, coaxing ancient systems to give just a little more. I sat with one such engineer during a pause, his hands shaking at surface, how he had cultivated a tree from a cutting brought across the stars, how it had finally borne fruit the previous season. He smiled as he spoke, as though describing a dream. I did not tell him the surface was gone. He already knew. Ash coated the gardens below now. The bio leaves dulled, their glow weakened. Some plants withered, others adapted, changing hue, finding ways to survive in the dim. Life is persistent, even when hope is not. And the night remembers. Mercy had found its way into the attackers' hearts. But because their work was nearing completion, the planet's void shields were shattered. Its crust fractured, its atmosphere bleeding away. What remained was being prepared, not destroyed, but offered. Word-bearer rituals, chants louder, now clearer, carried through the wounded world. Syllables that twisted the air, made thoughts slippery. Some of the civilians grew restless, agitated nightmares spreading through the shelters like a contagion. Ultramarine apothecaries worked to calm them, administering sedatives, speaking softly, holding hands until tremors passed. I remember lying down then, just for a moment, closing my eyes amid the hum of failing machinery, the ash tickling my cheek, and dreaming of sunlight, of open skies, of a time when brothers laughed together. When woke, an hour had passed, or a day. It no longer mattered. Guilliman had departed the central command, leading a counterstrike on the surface, a desperate attempt to sever the ritual, to wound the wound. His absence was felt immediately, like the removal of their work. But the air grew heavier, the future more uncertain. You are safe. Let go. The underground shook violently then. Not a tremor, but a convulsion. People were thrown from their feet. Lights shattered. Alarms screamed at last, no longer polite, echoing through the halls. Bulkheads slammed shut, some sealing too late. I was thrown against a wall, my recorder skidding across the floor. I remember the pain sharp, bright, then distant, like someone else's memory. Dust filled the air, choking. Then, quiet again. That was the rhythm of Calth's death. Violence, followed by stillness, chaos. Then an exhausted calm, each cycle stripping away a little more of who we were. And the night remembers. The galaxy sleeps. Close your through the sealed sectors. Methodical, silent, opening doors when they could, recording losses when they could not. Names added to lists that would never be fully read, never fully mourned. I helped where I could, observer to participant, because there was no longer any distance to be had. Above us, the ritual continued, the planet screaming soundlessly into the void. But you do not need to carry that weight tonight. Let the ash settle, then fade. Let the alarm soften into distant echoes. Become gentle. I am still here, watching, remembering. Sleep now, while the stars still burn. Breathe with me again, slow, patient, as though the air itself has learned endurance. Let it enter you gently and leave without urgency. You are held. The alarms screamed. themselves hoarse and fell silent. There came a vigil, long, unbroken. A stretch of time where nothing dramatic happened, and yet everything changed. This was the hardest part. The waiting. When it breaks, it groans, it adjusts, it remembers the pressure that shaped it. And beneath Calth we felt those adjustments constantly, a low ceaseless shifting, like a giant turning in uneasy sleep. People spoke less now, conserving breath, conserving hope. Nods, shared glances that carried entire histories. Children were kept close, their sleep watched carefully, as though dreams themselves might leak away if unattended. You are drifting, that your muscles soften. The Ultramarines established watches and cycles, but because vigilance was who they were, blue, armored figures standing motionless at corridor junctions, silhouettes against flickering lumen, strips, statues carved from duty. I remember the sound of their armor when they moved, soft, deliberate, the faint whisper of ceramite over comforting. Rations were adjusted again, smaller portions, more frequent, to maintain morale, water carefully measured, every drop accounted for. The great machine of Ultramar still functioned, wounded but unbroken, each calculate everything, gears, lungs, memories. It softened voices, muffled footsteps, turned the underground into something dreamlike, unreal. I brushed it from my sleeves, again and again, knowing it would return, always return, and the night were kind. I spent much of that vigil in the archives, or what remained of them, vaults sealed deep below the surface, their contents preserved by ancient fields and stubborn luck. I sat among shelves of data slates and parchment, recording names, testimonies, fragments of thought, survive even if we did not. The silence there was profound, broken only by the soft rustle of pages, the distant hum of power conduits. It felt like a tomb prepared in advance, not for bodies, but for ideas. Sometimes the chanting from above would reverent cadence. It never grew frantic, never rushed. That was what chilled me most, the patience of it, the certainty. It was not a song of conquest, but of fulfillment, as though the word-bearers were completing a long-awaited task. I remember covering my ears once. The sound was not entering them. It was entering thought itself, settling there, whispering of purpose, of destiny. I forced myself to focus on my breath, on the feel of the floor beneath me, grounding myself in the physical, the real. Do the same now. Feel where you rest. Guilliman did not return. Not for a long while. Reports filtered down instead, fragmented, delayed. His counterstrike had achieved little. The surface was a ruin, the word-bearers entrenched, their rituals shielded by forces that bent reality itself. Preparation. Yet he persisted, because persistence was his nature. The underground shelters grew colder, power diverted from climate control to life support. People wrapped themselves in blankets, in cloaks, in one another. Breath misted faintly in the air. a visual remote become. I sat with an old woman then, her hands knotted with age, her eyes sharp. She told me she had lived her entire life on Calth, had never seen the stars except as distant lights. She asked me if this end meant she had failed somehow. I told her no, gently. She nodded, satisfied, and fell asleep, her breathing slow. Even sleep is merciful. And the night remembers, the galaxy sleeps. Close your eyes, the long night is kind. There came a moment, subtle, easily missed, when the ground grew warmer, compensating friction deep below. The planet's wounded mantle shifting. Engineers whispered of chain reactions, of thresholds approaching. They spoke softly, respectfully, as one might speak of a dying elder. Guilliman's command finally came. Evacuation protocols revived. Ground was no longer guaranteed. Efforts would be made, but expectations tempered. This was said plainly, without drama, because false hope would have been crueler. Some people prayed, then, not loudly, not together, but alone, each in their own way. Nothing at all. The Ultramarines did not interfere. Faith was another resource, and one not easily measured. I found myself returning again and again to the same corridor, a long stretch of stone reinforced with adamantium ribs, ash piled in its corners. Lights from the central bustle. I would sit, breathe, listen to the distant groan of the world, and remind myself that I was still alive. You are alive here, now safe. The chanting above reached its slow conclusion, not with a crescendo, but with a hush, a sudden. Than any sound, even the planet seemed to pause, holding its breath. Then something changed. The pressure eased, slightly, as though a hand had been lifted. Alarms flickered, recalibrated. Some systems stabilized. Not repair work had been, and Calth, broken, bleeding, was no longer their focus. Relief passed through the shelters, tentative, cautious, like a wounded animal testing its limbs. No one cheered. No one celebrated. Survival came more easily, and the night remembers. The galaxy sleeps. Close your eyes. The long night is kind. Guilliman returned at last, battered armor scarred, but alive. His presence rippled through the underground like warmth, not joy, but reassurance. He's acknowledging the dead, promising that Ultramar would remember. That word, remember, settled deep within me, because that was all that remained. Memory. The vigil continued, but it changed from waiting for death to waiting for rescue. Morning. You do not need to stay awake for that. Let your breath slow. Let the stone grow warm. Let the ash become distant. I am still here, keeping watch. Sleep now, while the stars still burn. Breathe with me, gently, as though the air itself is tired. But without resistance, you are drifting, and I remain beside you in the wake of the ritual's end. Silence became something new, no longer a threat, no longer an omen, but a fragile gift. We treated it with care, speaking softly, moving till stability remained. The underground shelter settled into a rhythm that felt almost livable. Alarms grew infrequent. System readouts steadied into predictable patterns. Still dangerous, still strained, but no longer cascading toward immediate collapse. The planet had survived the wound, would never heal cleanly. I remember the first coordinated service reports. Thin, intermittent transmissions carried through improvised relays. Images flickering, distorted, showing a sky choked with debris. A sun reduced to a dull ember behind veils of dust. Cities reduced to skeletons of stone and metal. Everything familiar, made strange. Calth had not been destroyed. It had been hollowed. You are safe. Let that image soften. Recovery teams began the slow ascent. Ultramarines and auxilia moving upward through shattered access shafts. Each step measured, each breath tested. Hostile. The air thin, toxic in places, but it existed. And where there is air, there is hope, even if only a little. Down below, the waiting continued, but it was different now. Purposeful. Lists were made, names checked, messages prepared for family. Taught lessons again, quietly, gently, because learning is an act of defiance. I found myself helping in those lessons, reading from salvaged texts, my voice low, steady, teaching history to those who had just lived through it. I spoke of Ultramar's founding, of its principles, of reason, and watched young eyes absorb the words, not as doctrine, but as something fragile, something that could be broken. And the night remembers, the galaxy sleeps. Close your eyes, the long night is kind. The ash began to thin, not because the surface had healed. Themselves, what remained settled into drifts, thick in places, forming gray dunes where streets had once been. Recovery teams reported footprints preserved in it, frozen moments of flight, of confusion, of last stands. No bodies, just impressions, as though memory of motion. Guilliman ordered these sites marked, preserved, not cleared. Memory again. Always memory. I was granted passage to the surface once it was deemed marginally safe, sealed in a pressure suit, moving through air that tasted wrong sharp, metallic. I remember stepping out into a landscape that did not feel real. The sky, a dull gray. The horizon, obscured by dust. The sun, a pale disk without warmth. The city I had known was gone, its outlines barely recognizable beneath layers of ash and debris. Towers snapped, ears. Even the wind seemed hesitant, uncertain. I knelt then, pressing a gloved hand to the ground, feeling the faint vibration, the wounded pulse of Calth's heart. It was still there, stubborn, enduring. You are enduring too. The word bearers were gone, had taken what they came for, and left us with the aftermath. Their presence lingered only in corrupted zones, areas where instruments malfunctioned, where thoughts felt heavy, distorted. We were warned not to linger, not to listen. Guilliman addressed the survivors from a fractured forum, carried by Vox. Amplifiers, scavenged and repaired. He spoke of betrayal, not in anger, but in sorrow. He named the word bearers, named the wound, and vowed that Ultramar would not forget. That memory itself would be a weapon. People coding everything. When he finished, there was no applause, just a collective lowering of heads, acknowledgement, acceptance, and the night remembers. The galaxy sleeps. Close your eyes. The long night is kind. Recon would have been worse. Temporary shelters raised among ruins. Reactors stabilized. Air processors cleaned and recalibrated. Life support domes erected where cities had once stood open to the sky. Calth became a world of scars. Each one mapped, monitored, remembered. I continued my work, moving among the camps, recording testimonies, listening more than speaking. People told their stories quietly, often repeating themselves, as though afraid that if the words were not spoken again and again, they might vanish. I learned to listen without correcting, with shaping. Memory does not need editing, it needs space. Children drew pictures of the sky, sometimes as it was, blue, bright, sometimes as it had become, dark, fractured, sometimes both at once, layered. They slept easily afterward. Subtly, I noticed it in their movements, their silences, their glances at one another. Something had hardened, not into cruelty, but into resolve. The belief in inevitable unity had been replaced by something quieter. Vigilance. They still built. Brothers would stand beside them. Guilliman carried this weight openly, his presence more distant, more contained. I once saw him standing alone amid the ruins, looking toward the dim sun, unmoving. For a very long time, he did not notice me, and I did not, unobserved, even by remembrancers. And the night remembers. The galaxy sleeps. Close your eyes. The long night is kind. When the first evacuation ships arrived, weeks later, emerging cautiously from the void, their hulls scarred, their crews wary to carry Calth's memory elsewhere. Others stayed, determined to rebuild. Both choices were respected. Both were losses. I remained because someone had to. Someone had to remember from within, not from afar. Calth entered its twilight then, something in between. A world living on borrowed light, sustained by effort, by memory, by stubborn hope that refused to name itself. You do not need to carry that hope tonight. Let your breath slow. Let the images fade into gray, into softness. Now, while the stars still burn, breathe with me, slowly, as though the air itself lingers, unwilling to leave. Let it move through you, unforced, unhurried. You are safe here, resting between memory and forgetting. Calth did not sleep, claimed bodies and minds. The planet remained awake, shifting, settling, groaning softly beneath its scars. Sensors recorded constant microquakes, minute atmospheric fluctuations, the long patient labor of a wounded world trying to find balance again. I learned the sound of those movements, subtle difference between harmless settling and dangerous strain. The way the stone would sigh, then quiet, like a creature turning over in troubled rest. Listening became second nature, a form of prayer. You are drifting now. The shelters grew into communities. Weight of permanence. Names given to corridors, to plazas of rubble, to gathering places where people shared food and stories. Laughter returned, tentative, fragile, but real. And each time it lurked. But because unpredictability had become wisdom, their armor bore fresh scars, not repaired, left visible, reminders, markers of survival. I walked often at the edges of the hab, domes where the ash lay thickest, where the ruins pressed closest. There was a quiet there, underground silence. This was an open quiet, vast, empty, the kind that stretches the mind, makes thoughts drift. I found it soothing. In a way, grief needs space, and the night remembers. The galaxy sleeps. Close your eyes. The long night is kind. Doors. But by unspoken agreement, areas where the rituals had bitten deepest, where instruments failed, where voices sounded wrong, distorted, echoing oddly, recovery teams marked them, logged them, then left them alone. Some wounds are best left untouched, grand monuments, but simple markers, stone slabs inscribed with names, with dates, with words chosen for their restraint. There was no triumph in them, only remembrance. People visited quietly, laying scraps of cloth, bits of metal, personal tokens, not just the great events, but the small, the human. Because history forgets these first. Children began to ask questions about the word bearers, about why brothers would hurt brothers. Adults struggled to answer. Some spoke of corruption, others of lies, admired those who admitted ignorance. Truth is often that simple. At night, when the lights dimmed, nightmares spread through the camps, dreams of falling skies, of chanting voices, of endless dark, ultramarine apothecaries. They were holding hands until the tremors passed. You are safe. I found myself waking often, listening, the habit of vigilance hard to break. Sometimes I would walk until fatigue returned, tracing familiar routes, the hum of generators, lullabies, proof that life persisted. One night, or what passed for night beneath the dim sky, I heard music, faint, tentative, someone playing a stringed instrument salvaged from the ruins. The notes were slow, uneven, but gentle. People gathered, sat quietly, listened, recorded nothing. Then, some moments must be lived, not preserved, and the night remembers. The galaxy sleeps. Close your eyes. The long night is kind. Guilliman announced plans to restore limited governance. Councils formed. Civilians invited to participate. Empire. It was an idea, and ideas require voices, even broken ones. Debates were held, quietly, respectfully, about priorities, about who would receive resources first, about whether rebuilding was even wise. There were no easy answers, only attention unwavering, his patience immense. He listened to every speaker, even those who spoke through tears, through anger. He did not promise miracles, only effort, and that was enough. The Ultramarines began training local defense forces, lightly armed but to protect homes. Empowerment again, a quiet rebuilding of trust. Calth's sky began to change. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, dust settled. Particulate levels dropped. The sun brightened from dull ember to weak glow. No warmth yet, but light. Look up, shielding eyes, smiling at one another, saying nothing. You are drifting deeper. I stood with them, feeling the faint light on my face, remembering the golden skies of before, and understanding that they would never return. Not as they were, but something else might. Something quieter, harder won. The word bearers became a story then. No longer a presence, no longer a threat, but a wound given a name, whispered, discussed, studied. Guilliman ordered their scriptures analyzed, their methods catalogued. Understanding again. Close your eyes. The long night is kind. There are still losses, accidents, failures, people who could not adapt, who slipped away quietly in their sleep. Their bodies tended to with care, rites spoken softly, names added to lists, grief, never truly familiar. I aged there, slowly feeling the weight of years press in, the cost of memory accumulating. I sometimes wondered if forgetting might be kinder. But then, a child would ask me to tell them what Calth had been like, and I would speak gently, carefully, choosing words that carried light, not despair. You will sleep now, soon. The world refused to sleep, but it learned to rest, to pause, to breathe. Just as you are doing now, I am here, still watching, still remembering. Sleep. Now, while the stars still burn, exhalation longer. Let the quiet fill you. Let it settle in your chest, in your arms, in the space between your thoughts. You are safe here. Calth was quiet, but not still. Beneath the ruins, beneath the ash-laden streets, beneath stone, whisper of shifting metal, low hum of systems struggling to survive, all of it stitched together by patience, by the endurance of countless lives. I walked through the corridors of shelter once more, seeing the imprint of lives lived in extreme quiet. A child's boot beside a slab of concrete, a cracked tablet of lessons abandoned mid-sentence, a helmet set carefully against a wall. Everything marked by presence and absence. You are drifting now. Allow your body to notice the spaces between beats, between breaths, between thought. The Ultramarines mean enemy, but for the planet, for the people, for the memory of what had happened. They moved like shadows, careful, deliberate, their voices low, as though speaking louder would fracture the fragile calm. Ash had thinned now, settling in muted layers. Fire, carrying with it the scent of burned stone, of scorched metal, and the faint, almost imperceptible smell of smoke lingering from things once alive. And the night remembers. The galaxy sleeps. Close your eyes. the long night is kind. Wind move the ash, slow eddies, curling around broken spires, carrying dust into shallow craters. The sound was soft, like a sigh, the kind that carries both relief and mourning in the same breath. Above, the sky was still pale, still heavy with particulates, tentative, yet enough to cast long, trembling shadows across the rubble. Shapes that shifted as we did, that moved with the sun, with the wind, with memory itself. In the distance, a faint murmur of chants. Not word-bearers, not any in remembrance, soft, barely audible, repeated at intervals, comforting in its predictability. You are safe. Feel your chest rise, fall, rising and falling, like the slow pulse of this wounded world. I remember the engineers, still moving carefully among machinery from failing circuits, their hands steady, their eyes focused. Each success a quiet triumph, each failure met with calm, with resolve, because panic could not rebuild, only patience could. Children laughed softly, a sound fragile enough to startle, a reminder that life, even here, persisted, that innocence could still find purchase in the scars. And the night remembers, the galaxy sleeps. Close your eyes, the long night is kind. Guilliman visited the surface once more, offering words, reassurance, a quiet acknowledgement that their pain mattered, that their endurance mattered, that memory itself mattered. He walked past me once, not noticing, or perhaps not needing to. He had become a figure of patience, of strategy, being seen. Reports came in from the remaining sensors, the planet's crust settling, the atmosphere stabilizing, pockets of life clinging stubbornly, plants adapting to ash-covered soil, domes beginning to flourish once more. Declaration, you are drifting deeper. Let go of thought. Let go of tension. I moved through the domes, watching people sleep, some curled in blankets, some leaning on each other, the exhaustion of survival, lending weight to every breath. Instructions, only assurance, only acknowledgement that they were seen, that their presence mattered. Ash still lingered, in corners, in ventilation shafts, on surfaces, a constant reminder of what had passed, of what could not be undone, part of the landscape, part of the memory, part of the rhythm of life. And the night remembers, the galaxy sleeps. Close your eyes. The long night is kind, I recorded silently, careful not to disturb, documenting not the grand events, not the adjustments, the small victories, the ways that people carried on in defiance of absence. I paused at a memorial, a simple slab marking a place where a family had perished, a lone figure kneeling beside it, placing ash-wrapped flowers, speaking softly, word love, intertwined. I waited, watching, recording, remembering. Above, clouds shifted. The dim sun broke briefly through, casting a thin shaft of light onto the scene. The figure straightened, eyes lift. Remembers, the galaxy sleeps. Close your eyes, the long night is kind. Even the word-bearer's influence waned, their rituals dissipating, leaving only residual echoes, quiet areas where instruments registered anomalies, corridors where footsteps felt heavier, air that seemed more patient, watchful. Survivors were taught to respect these spaces, to move through them without haste, without fear, a lesson in restraint, in observation, in endurance. I wandered through one such corridor, ash swirling at my boots, the faint hum of failing generators beneath my feet. I breathed, letting the quiet fill me, letting memory settle, letting presence ground me, and the night remembers. The galaxy sleeps. Close your eyes. The long night is kind. I saw Guilliman once more, atop a ridge overlooking the city, the wind tugging at his cloak. He did not move for long minutes, watching, waiting, considering. His silence, not emptiness, but deliberation, patience, the embodiment of endure. I approached, but he did not speak. He nodded once, a small gesture of acknowledgement, shared between us, unspoken, sufficient. You are safe, resting, letting the world continue without burdening your mind. The survivors settled into the rhythm of the land, rebuilding slowly, carefully, learning to live among ruins. Their steps measured, their machinery in each other, patience the highest virtue, endurance the only reward, and the night remembers, the galaxy sleeps. Close your eyes, the long night is kind. I remain ever watchful, ever remembering, each breath a note in the quiet promise to the future. Sleep now, while the stars still burn. Breathe, slowly with me, as though each inhalation is drawn from the memory of light itself, and each exhalation releases the weight of centuries. Feel your chest expand, then soften. Safe. Calth continued its long vigil, even as survivors rebuilt, even as the ash settled, even as the glow of distant braziers flickered through streets that once thrummed with life. The planet moved beneath us, a careful, deliberate pulse, subtle. Endurance. I walked among those who remained, the faithful, the cautious, those who had learned to speak quietly, to listen intently, their movements measured, as though any abruptness might disturb the fragile order. And the night remembers. Kind. The Ultramarines patrolled still, shadows against stone, guardians of memory, of stability, of the faint threads of hope that tethered us to the future. Their steps soft, deliberate, every turn, every pause calculated. Not for battle, but for observe through open corridors, through fractured windows, over the uneven streets. It settled upon the survivors' shoulders, in their hair, on their sleeves, a constant companion, neither cruel nor gentle, simply present. Memorials were completed, simple stones etched with names, the dates of their passing, phrases chosen with care, restraint, humility, no triumph, only remembrance. People came to kneel, to whisper, to leave small talk carried more weight than words. I lingered beside one, a small marker for children who had never had a chance to speak their stories. I pressed my hand against the cold stone, feeling the lingering warmth of memory, the faint echo of lives that had been and would be again, in memory, in retelling, in quiet thought. And the night remembers. The galaxy sleeps. Close your eyes. The long night is kind. The word bearer's presence had receded, no longer active. Only their residual echoes remained. Corridors where instruments failed. Lights flickered. Whispers caught in perception. Nothing violent. Nothing loud. Only the faintest reminder that not all wounds are visible. Children learn to navigate these spaces, slowly, carefully, taught to respect absence, to observe silence, to understand that to them often, stories of what had been, stories of what endurance could mean. I did not embellish, I did not soften, only spoke, slowly, calmly, letting words wrap around their minds like warm cloth. You are safe. Let your mind rest. Let your thoughts drift. Above, sky thin and pale, yet light persisted, weak, fragile. But enough to cast long shadows, enough to illuminate the ash, enough to remind the living that survival itself was an achievement. I watched the survivors rise each day, working among ruins, their movements deliberate, careful, hands tending both the broken and the living, teaching, building, listening, sometimes crying quietly, sometimes laughing softly. Small, almost imperceptible acts of life persisting in the face of absence. And the night remembers. The galaxy sleeps. Close your eyes. Among the survivors again, his presence still measured, calm, his voice steady, not commanding, not loud, merely there, reassuring, observing, acknowledging. He spoke of recovery, of rebuilding, of memory, of patience, of endurance. I saw him pause at the lines of what had been, what might be again. He breathed slowly, deliberately, as though inhaling the memory of the place and letting it fill him. You are drifting deeper. Feel your chest rise, fall like the slow pulse of the planet, like the rhythm of life itself. Scarred continued their work, coaxing power from fractured systems, stabilizing failing circuits, preserving data, keeping memory alive. Their hands steady, their resolve unbroken. Each success, a quiet act of defiance. Each failure, absorbed everywhere, dusted upon surfaces, in machinery, in the air, a soft veil that muted the edges of reality. It carried with it the smell of burnt metal, of stone, of survival, subtle, persistent, unavoidable. Wandered through. Ehab. Domes, quiet now. The hum of generators, a constant companion. Children asleep in blankets. Adults watching over them. Whispers carried on recycled air. The faint scent of ash and incense mingling. Each breath the word bearers. Of moments lost. of brothers who would never return, of things seen that could not be forgotten. I recorded it all, not for history books, but for memory itself, a living archive, a web of understanding and endurance. And in the quietest hours, breath, I would look to the sky, pale light shifting through ash clouds, shafts of illumination touching rubble, bringing subtle warmth, a reminder that light, even filtered and faint, persists. Even when hope is fragile, you are drifting now, deeper. Let the air carry you, guide you. Even the word bearers, lingering whispers, began to fade. Corridors where instruments flickered, rooms where shadows seemed heavier, all gradually returning to balance. Stability, quiet vigilance, patience, restraint, and the night, remember, kind. I remained, watching, recording, whispering, letting every small act of survival, every breath, every careful step, every soft laugh, every memory preserved, become part of the quiet song that held us, that held Calth, that held you. Sleep now, gently, slowly, each inhalation drawing in the quiet, each exhalation releasing tension. You are held here, between the weight of memory and the stillness of the present. Let it settle, let it soften your chest. Calth had become a world of patience, of slow, endurance. Ultramar, not yet a sanctuary, but a landscape shaped by persistence, by the weight of loss, by quiet acts that were stronger than any shout. The shelters hummed with faint life, the soft sigh of air recyclers, the distant drip of water from fractured pipes, steps echoing, voices hushed, deliberate, speaking only when necessary, every sound considered, measured. You are drifting now. Let your body notice the spaces between movement, between thought, between breath. I moved among survivors, watching, recording, silently acknowledging the acts of defiance against absence. Children learning to play amidst ruins, elders teaching history through gestures and stories, people finding each other in soft glances and quiet nods. And the night remembers. The galaxy sleeps. Close your eyes. The long night is kind. The ash remained present, a thin veil covering the world, settling in drifts across rubble, clinging to clothing, swirling with each breath of wind, softening the jagged edges of broken buildings, transforming destruction into a muted landscape, a world seen through a veil of remembrance. The Ultramarines, their watch, patrols, slow, careful, silent, observing, not just for threat, but for the rhythm of life, for the balance between survival and despair. Each movement deliberate, each glance measured, every gesture an unspoken promise. Release. I lingered in corridors where the word-bearer's influence had once been strongest, where lights flickered, instruments failed, shadows clung with unusual weight. I breathed slowly, stepping carefully, letting the ash beneath my boots cushion each footfall. Patient, observant, and the night remembers. The galaxy sleeps. Close your eyes. The long night is kind. The survivors began to organize. Quietly, deliberately, councils formed, small groups deciding who would repair what, Who would tend to which sectors? Who would teach? Who would care? Deliberate. Weighed against the fragility of existence, Guilliman moved among them, a figure of calm endurance, never loud, never demanding, his words measured, reassuring. The embodiment of patience itself. He reminded them that memory was strength, that's restraint. I observed him, noting the subtle weight of centuries in his posture, the careful modulation of his voice, the way his eyes lingered on each person, acknowledging presence, offering calm, instilling patience without demand. You are drifting deeper. Let your thoughts soften. Ash continued to drift, a constant reminder, yet no longer oppressive, a gentle layer covering stone and debris, settling into corners, swirling around light sources, carrying the faint scent of smoke and stone. An ambient lullaby for the weary. Close your eyes. The long night is kind. Children played quietly among the ruins. Games slow, deliberate, laughter soft, fleeting, watched over by adults who remained vigilant. Hands resting lightly on shoulders, eyes scanning, a careful balance of freedom and safety. Each act a signal that life still mattered. I moved among them, whispering softly, recounting fragments of history. Stories of Ultramar, of brotherhood, of duty, of hope. Letting words wash over tired minds. A lullaby made of memory and care. Even the engineers continued systems, stabilizing circuits, patching conduits, their movements slow, precise. Each success celebrated quietly, each failure absorbed, noted, learned from, a ritual of endurance. You are drifting now, deeper still. Bearer's echoes became fainter. Corridors once twisted by ritual, now returned to careful neutrality. Instruments stabilized. The heavy air lifted. Spaces became watchful, not threatening, observing, patient, waiting for those who survived to understand, to remember. Galaxy sleeps. Close your eyes. The long night is kind. I lingered at the edge of a collapsed plaza, watching survivors tend to ruins, picking through rubble for remnants, rebuilding slowly, deliberately. The act itself a defiance against loss, each measured reminder that survival is stronger than destruction. Above, pale light filtered through clouds, shafts of illumination falling on ash, laden streets, shadows stretching across fractured stone. Gentle, solemn, even when fractured. You are safe. Let your mind settle into the calm. Let your body follow. I recorded quietly, not for history books, not for triumph, only for memory, for the faintest echo of life, persisting, for the soft testament that remains, endurance remains, hope, quiet, unassuming, and the night remembers. The galaxy sleeps. Close your eyes. The long night is kind. I remained watching, whispering, breathing, letting every act of survival, every soft, deliberate heartbeat of Calth sleep now, while the stars still burn. Breathe, slowly, gently. Let the quiet fill every corner of your mind. Each inhale drawing in calm, each exhale releasing the weight of what is past. You are safe, held, present, and ash, yet life persisted. Not in the brilliance of before, but in the measured, patient rhythm of those who remained. Every breath, every step, every whispered word, a testament to survival. The shelters had slowly, their routines deliberate, each action taken with care. The world around them fragile, and yet resilient, and the night remembers. The galaxy sleeps. Close your eyes. The long night is kind. I wandered among reassurances between strangers, children leaning on elders, elders guiding the young. The delicate web of life continuing quietly. Ash drifted continuously, a gentle veil settling in corners, across corridors, over broken steps and fractured streets, softening the jagged lines of ruin. Presence, neither threatening nor comforting, simply there, a reminder of endurance. The Ultramarines moved through this world with quiet diligence, not as soldiers seeking glory, but as guardians of memory, of stability, of calm. Their armor marked, steps measured, deliberate. You are drifting now, deeper. Let your body relax. Let each breath slow, synchronize with the rhythm of the world. Memorials were completed. Simple stones etched with names, gestures small yet significant, past honored. The future approached cautiously, and the night remembers. The galaxy sleeps. Close your eyes. The long night is kind. Guilliman walked the ruined streets, his presence calm, steady, a quiet reassurance to those who survived, observed, acknowledged, and guided. His example, a lesson in patience and endurance. I lingered beside him, unseen, breathing the same pale light that filtered through ash, thick skies, feeling the subtle warmth on my face, letting the quiet of the world seep into me. Children played softly, fragile, fleeting, watched over by vigilant adults, gestures of protection, gentle, hands resting lightly on shoulders, eyes soft yet watchful, a balance between freedom and care. Ash, lullaby to those awake and those asleep. And the night remembers. The galaxy sleeps. Close your eyes. The long night is kind. The word bearers were gone, their influence reduced to faint echoes. Corridors, once twisted, now quiet. Waiting, I moved among the survivors, whispering softly, recounting fragments of history, stories of Ultramar, of Brotherhood, of patience, letting words settle like ash, soft, careful, unhurried. You are safe. Let your mind rest. Power from fractured systems, repairing circuits, stabilizing failing machinery. Each act slow, deliberate. Each success quietly celebrated. Each failure absorbed, recorded, learned from patience. The only reward. And the night remembers. Stood at the edge of the city, observing the survivors, tending ruins, rebuilding slowly, deliberately, the act itself, a quiet defiance, each careful step a testament to endurance, each whispered word a reminder that life continues. Ash, laden streets, soft illumination reminding all that light persists, even when faint, even when fractured, even when filtered. You are drifting now, deeper. Let the rhythm of the world guide you, I whispered to the survivor of quiet vigilance, letting each act, each breath, each preserved memory become part of the pulse of Calth. And so the tale fades into the long night. The embers cool, the ash settles. The rain grows softer. Carry this sorrow gently into sleep. Tomorrow is another war. Quiet. Rest now. Rest.